This is an open letter to Republicans from a former Republican, Frank Schaeffer, whose parents were almost single-handedly responsible for giving birth to what has come to lovingly be called the religious right, you know, the crazy people. He also wrote a book, Frank Schaeffer did, called Crazy for God. He has repudiated not just his Republican roots, but about 99% of the religious garbage that was pumped into his head. He writes an open letter here to Republicans. He says, "You Republicans are the arsonists who burned down our national home." Whoa! You combined the failed ideologies of the religious right, so-called free market deregulation, and the neoconservative love of war to light a fire that has consumed America. Now you have the nerve to criticize the architect America just hired, President Obama, to rebuild from the ashes? You do nothing constructive, just try to hinder the one person willing and able to fix the mess you created. I used to be one of you. As recently as 2001, I worked to get Senator McCain elected in that year's primary. McCain and General Tommy Franks wrote glowing endorsements regarding my book about military service, titled AWOL. I have a file of handwritten thank you notes from Presidents Ford, Reagan, Bush 1 and 2. In the 70s and early 80s, I hung out with Jack Kemp and bought into his supply-side myth and even wrote a book he endorsed pushing his ideas. There's more, but take it from me. My parents, evangelical leaders Francis and Edith Schaeffer, and I, were about as tight with and useful to the Republican Party as anyone. We played a big part creating the religious right. In the mid-1980s, I left the religious right after I realized just how very anti-American they are. They wanted America to fail in order to prove they were right about America's so-called moral decline. Soon after McCain lost in 2000, I re-registered as an independent in disgust with George W. Bush, but I still respected many Republicans. Not today. How can anyone who loves our country support the Republicans now? Barry Goldwater, William F. Buckley, and Ronald Reagan defined the modern conservatism that used to be what the Republican Party I belonged to was all about. Today, no actual conservative can be a Republican. Reagan would despise today's wholly negative Republican Party. And can you picture the gentlemanly and always polite Ronald Reagan endorsing a radio hate jock slob who crudely mocked a man with Parkinson's and who now says he wants an American president to fail? With people like Limbaugh as the loudmouth image of the Republican Party, you need no enemies. But something far more serious has happened than an image problem. The Republican Party has become the party of obstruction at just the time when all Americans should be pulling together for the good of our country. Instead, Republicans are today's fifth column, sabotaging American renewal. President Obama has been in office barely 45 days as I write this, and the Republican Party has the nerve to blame him for the economic and military cataclysm he inherited? I say economic and military cataclysm because without your needless war in Iraq you all backed, we would not be in the economic mess we're in today. If that money had been spent here at home on renovating our infrastructure, taking us toward a green economy, putting our healthcare system in order, we'd be a very different nation. As the father of a Marine who served in George W. Bush's misbegotten wars, let me say this. If President Obama's strategy to repair our economy, infrastructure, and healthcare fails, that will put our troops at far greater risk because the world will become a far more dangerous place. So for all you flag-waving Republicans who are trying to undermine the president at home, if you succeed, more of our troops will be killed abroad. When your new leader, Rush Limbaugh, calls for President Obama to fail, he's calling for more flag-draped coffins. Limbaugh is the new so-called Hanoi Jane. For the party that created our crises of misbegotten war, mismanaged economy, lack of regulation of our banking industry, handing our country to rich crooks, to obstruct the one person who's trying to repair the damage is obscene. Just imagine where America would be today if the 14 to 20 million voters, the Rube base, who slavishly follow the likes of Limbaugh, if they had not voted as a bloc year after year, thus empowering the Republican fiasco. We would have a regulated banking industry and would have avoided our current financial crisis. Some 4,000 of our killed military men and women would still be alive. Over 35,000 wounded Americans would be whole. We would have been leaders in the environmental movement. We would be in the middle of a green technology boom, fueling a huge expansion of our economy and stopping our dependence on foreign oil. And our healthcare system would be reformed. After Obama was elected, you Republican leaders had a unique last chance to send a patriotic message of unity to the world and to all Americans. You could have backed our president's economic recovery plan. Since we all know that half of our problems is one of lost confidence and perception, nothing would have done more to calm the markets and project resolve and confidence than if you had been big enough to take Obama's offered hand and had worked with him. Even if you disagreed ideologically, you had the chance to put our country first. You utterly failed to rise to the occasion. The worsening economic situation is your fault and your fault alone. The Republicans created this mess through 8 years of backing the worst president in our history, and now, because you put partisan ideology ahead of the good of the country, you have blown your last chance to redeem yourselves. You deserve the banishment to the political wilderness that awaits all traitors. Frank Schaeffer. All right. I couldn't say it better myself, Frank. Yeah, it truly is incredible what the Republicans have done, and you know, every time I turn on Oberman or Rachel's program or any of these programs that have video of this raging maniacal jackass rolling from side to side in his body fat while he screams into his microphone about Democrat this and Democrat that, and hey, when you leave the party, Arlen, take John McCain with you. In other words, this obese monster. Rush Limbaugh, and the way the Republican politicians up to or down to and including this uncle who now runs the Republican National Committee, when I see the way they bow and scrape to this obese bastard who sits in a studio somewhere and spews out his lies and this degenerate program of his, and I just think to myself, my God, how did it come to pass that this country has a piece of human waste like that, who has absolute control over the Republican Party? Republican Party leadership doesn't go to the toilet without checking with Limbaugh first. I mean, they're the ones that made him an honorary member of the 100 and whatever it was House that convened, U.S. House of Representatives that convened in January of 1995, because between Limbaugh and Newt Gingrich, they had so corrupted our political system. Gingrich on the inside and Limbaugh on the outside, Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside. They corrupted it. They destroyed it. They turned it into a cheeseball fight of negative advertising and lies and weirdness. And out of it, they got 15 years of fun and frivolity to destroy the country. And son of a bitch, didn't they do a good job.